Hey, everybody. I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is Father. Father. Now, it's something, y'all know, those of you that know that I love some good dad jokes, but don't worry, I'll spare you of the dad jokes today. But it is something about our fathers that no matter what we say, we really, even growing up, we strive to please them. I mean, we strive to please our parents and get their approval. And maybe it's just something different about dads and especially even from a son's point of view that obviously I can speak from, um, but from a daughter's point of view as well. A lot of times those daughters have daddy wrapped around their little finger, so I mean it's a different relationship there as well. But you still want to please dad. Well, Jesus, as he's talking here in John chapter 8, he is continuing to argue against the people. And the fact, and when I say argue, he's arguing his stance, which is the right stance. And the way that the people continue to come against him and say, "Well, wait a minute, we know who you are. We know where you're from." And then he's already talked about the law from Moses, and now today he's in John chapter 8. He's talking about Abraham, and then the people are getting really confused. They're like, "Well, wait a minute, how are you going to say that?" How do you know Abraham? Abraham was glad to see your day, and you're not even 50 years old. How do you explain that? And then at the end of the chapter, he says, "Well, that's because before Abraham was, I am." And then they decide, okay, now it's really time to kill you. I mean, right? They're going to pick up stones and chase him, and so read the whole chapter so you get the whole idea of what's going on. But yesterday we talked a little bit about the fact that we'll continue to fail to understand God's word when we refuse to submit ourselves to it. But not just submission to it, right? That's not the whole story, but that is the beginning of it. But we also not only submitting to it, but we've got to listen too. We got to pay attention. And that's really what Jesus is saying in this. He's like, you're not listening. You just want to please your Father. He says the same way that I want to please my Father. So Jesus says that everything that he has done is because God the Father has sent him. But he also tells the people there, he says, you're just doing what your Father wants you to do. But it's not their earthly father that he's talking about. So let's look and see. John chapter 8 today, verses 42 through 47 says, Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Nor have I come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Because you are not able to listen to my word. You are of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me? Which of you convicts me of sin? And if I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears God's words. Therefore, you do not hear, because you are not of God. Plain and simple, he says, you are looking like your father. Now, speaking honestly, in my own life, plenty of times have I said that I looked like my earthly dad, that I sounded like my earthly dad, that I had mannerisms like my earthly dad. And some of those things, we do without really just subconsciously. Some of it is genes, and I mean it's passed down to us, and it's the way that we were raised. So what else would we expect? But see, on the spiritual side of things, when we are born, we were born in the image of God, but that image of God has been marred by sin. And so we belong as sinners. As we're born into sin, we belong to Satan. And that's why we have to be born again, right? So we have to be born of Christ, born of spirit. We're already born of flesh. He said, what Jesus told Nicodemus in John chapter 3, he says, marvel not that I said you must be born again. So he's saying, you are looking too much like your father, the devil. He's the one that he was a murderer from the beginning. Don't forget, he was the one that tempted Eve and deceived her and then tempted Adam as well. He was the source of all of that. But then also to remember that Cain and Abel, the first sons in the Bible, the first brothers, also we have in the first family, we have the first murder. Satan was a murderer from the beginning. And he says, now you're seeking to do the same thing. You want to kill me because this is what Jesus is saying. You want to kill me because I'm telling you the truth. But yet those who tell you lies, that's what you want to continue to praise and continue to lift up. More and more in our society today, we are finding that those who tell the truth are the ones that are attacked, and lies upon lies upon lies are accepted. Why? Because people look like their father. If we belong to God, then we should look like him. But if we do not look like him, if we do not act like him, if we do not talk like him, if we don't represent him, if we're not listening to his word, as he said, if we're not submitting to that word, as we talked about yesterday, there's a reason for all of that. It's because we don't belong to God. We belong to the devil. Now, that's a scary thought for some of us. Some of you may hear that and you may say, well, wait a minute. No, I've just been backsliding a little bit. Or, yeah, I'm not perfect, or I'm not as good as such and such. Let's just put all that aside. Let's put all the, just really just clear the slate, push all that stuff away. And let's just say, do you belong to God? Or has Satan have you fooled all along and you're believing his lie? Don't pretend to be saved and act like you're saved. Know that you're saved. Know that you have been born again. And one of the easiest ways to tell is if you look like your Father in heaven. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.